Hello, welcome to Lil's Vintage World. This video is a book review of Under Fire, The Blitz Diaries of a Volunteer Ambulance Driver by Naomi Clifford. I have read a book by Naomi Clifford before and I really enjoyed it. It was about women and the gallows and I found it quite fascinating. There's so many women there that I'd never heard of before and brought them back to life for me, particularly as someone who's such a lover of women's history myself. So go and check that one out if you're interested. But Naomi got in touch with me on Twitter and said, would I like a copy of her new book, Under Fire? And I was like, yes, please. So what can I say about this? This book is the story of the Second World War, in particularly the Blitz, that period in time where destruction was just completely brought to the home front and the devastation was absolutely catastrophic. This book in particular uses the diary of one woman called June Spencer. Pre-war, June Spencer was young, beautiful, vivacious, very kind, and she was a fashion designer, which is right up my sort of street. I fell in love with her from the get-go. And June, when war kicks off, she's like, right, I need to do something, and she becomes a volunteer ambulance driver eventually. She does have other ideas, but she does become a volunteer ambulance driver. And through her diary, we follow her through navigating her life in London during the Second World War, in particularly at the Blitz. And it's what life is like for June and for everybody else at that time. Naomi is telling the story not of necessarily June, but she's telling the story of the Blitz, but using June's diaries as an example. She often uses other people's diaries as an example as well, such as Frances Verville. She was a nurse and she wrote a memoir herself, and that's in here too. So it's not just June. Naomi Clifford's using a bunch of different sources, bringing them all together to tell us what was really happening and what life was really like for the volunteers of London during this absolutely devastating, catastrophic time, and albeit absolutely petrifying time as well. I loved so much about this book. I love the fact that Naomi brought June to life for me. As I said, I fell in love with her. As soon as I knew she was like into fashion and design and all that type of thing, I absolutely loved and fell in love with her. This picture on the back was a portrait that was done of June, and it was actually on the front cover of a magazine, which was amazing. The life that June led during the war was incredible, and it's quite interesting actually, because in this book it's life. It's not just they're going here to sort out this problem, here to try and save these people's lives. It's not just that, it's the whole life of what it was like at this time. So what your days off would be like, what the worst days would be like, what the waiting and all that type of thing. And actually it was really interesting to do it that way, because in here is the talk of the everyday life. You know, it's not coming down 24/7. When it happened, and it's devastating and it's harrowing and it's hard. But when it's not happening and there's waiting, it's harrowing and it's crushing and it's just horrible. And then when there's this peace, there's this glimmer of trying to. You can see these people and they're broken people, but they're trying to make the best out of an awful situation. And something that June loves to do is dance. And it was I read it and I got quite emotional actually, because my grandma, who I've spoken about before, she was a bomb girl during the Second World War. I've done a video of So You Want to Be a World War II Bomb Girl, which you can watch up here. That's what my grandma did. She made bullets during the Second World War. And she always used to say how she'd do these horrible shifts and it was horrible, and you know, if you got anything on you, you'd go down the line, you get chucked in this big vat of water and all this type of thing, and it wasn't a nice life that they were leading at this point. And you know it wasn't, you know it's not from the history books, but living it is a completely different thing. And she said that her outlet was dancing, and that would give her her breathing space, and that would give her that little bit of normality to just keep going on day after day after day, because they don't know when this is going to end. And it was just so funny that my grandma's told me so many stories about her going to the local village hall and doing dancing, and the soldiers that she's meeting and things like that, and all these different people that she's meeting. And then it was right in this book. And it's just funny because we're up here in the West Midlands and Jean is in London, but the life that people are leading are not that different, despite the fact that this is London life. And you think that there's so much more going on, and yes, there probably is a lot more going on than the West Midlands, which is quite a lot of a couple of cities like Birmingham and Worcester, but then the rest of it's a lot of countryside. That actually the life of people around the similar age are all living a very similar sort of life, and they have to have that outlet. And I got so emotional reading this. It was wonderful. I think the way that Naomi's written this book is brilliant. It's broken the mold, because this isn't a history book of telling you the Second World War. That's not what it is. But it's also not a memoir. This isn't Naomi Clifford going, this is my life during the Second World War. That's not what she's doing here. And this is just June's diaries. This isn't June's diaries that you get in here. This is snippets of June's diaries that you get in here. But Naomi is putting all these pieces together of what life was like. And it's absolutely wonderful. The primary source evidence in this is spectacular because it's someone's diaries, it's someone's life. But then what Naomi's doing is she's getting other people's memoirs and other evidence that we have available and just smushing it all together to say this is a history of the Blitz. Phenomenal. Now, of course, I do have to read you a bit because I've got to show you what it's really, really like, haven't I? And the bit that I'm going to read you is from June's diaries. And I think when I was trying to pick what to read, I was like, I've got to read a bit of June's diaries, haven't I? And hopefully entice you to read the rest of the book. So here we go. Saturday the 14th of September. Breakfast early. Caught the bus to Hitchin, which was extremely crowded and full of evacuees. Met by Mummy to see Grandmama. Slightly dazed at seeing everyone exactly the same and very peaceful. Everyone quite oblivious to the hell which was only 40 miles behind me. Tried to wire to London and found all communications cut off, so no wonder. It was lovely to get to the top of Gallows Hill again. Everywhere looked so fresh and lovely. It was too wonderful to step into a real bed again and sleep. They had just had quite a hit, and June is quite shocked at the reality of that. Just, as she said, a little while away there is this peace, but back home where she was, it's absolute catastrophe. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. It was emotional. I was smiling at some wonderful points, but then I was brought back down to earth as June loses friends, or the reality of the Blitz and people that she's taking in her ambulance. It's quite upsetting, as you expect it to be, but it was absolutely wonderful. It's a very me book. If you're interested in the history of the Second World War, of course you'll enjoy it. If you're interested in the history of memoirs, you'll enjoy it, and diaries and that sort of thing. Or if you're like me, interested in women's history, you will like it. Fascinating to learn about this person, and thank you, Naomi, for bringing her back into the forefront. June died a few years ago now, but her story has now come back to life and hopefully will forever be here thanks to Naomi, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I do hope that there's more books like this that come out that are using the diaries and journals and letters that we have available from the early to mid 20th century and talk about the time period in this way. It's wonderful to combine fact in the history textbook sort of form with the memoirs and diaries. It's absolutely amazing. So, of course, if you're wondering, I gave it 5 stars. I utterly adored it. If you're interested, go and get your hands on a copy of Under Fire. It's wonderful, and we can chat about it in the comments. Let me know if you're interested in this book, and I shall see you soon for the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye.